According to Sinn Féin TD Matt Carthy, nasty actors online are trying to portray Sinn Féin as supporting open borders when nothing could be further from the truth.
Lots of people online, nasty actors, try and portray Sinn Féin as in somehow supporting open borders, when what we want is a fair, efficient and effective migration system. That's what Sinn Féin demand, not open borders, as some of those nasty actors try to suggest in their anonymous online rants.
Now, where on earth did these horrible, nasty meanies get the frankly crazy idea that Sinn Féin supports open borders? Where did that wild view come from exactly? It seems like we have a mystery on our hands, Scoob. So to get to the bottom of this riddle, this enigma, this perplexing conundrum, we're going to be taking a look back at Sinn Féin's previous immigration policies, and to make sure that we're really fair about this, we're going to be going back over a quarter of a century right up until the modern day so that you can get a full picture of their true position over time. Our story begins at the Sinn Féin Ardèche in the year 1998, which featured the following past motions. Considering this country's history of emigration, Sinn Féin deplores all attempts to limit the numbers of political and economic refugees into the country and supports the full integration of the aforementioned refugees into society. Sinn Féin views with concern the increasing emergence of openly racist sentiment in Ireland. We support the calls for an immediate amnesty for all asylum seekers in the 26 counties, and then here's the real kicker, Sinn Féin will work for the achievement of the optimum position of no restriction on immigration in Ireland. No restriction on immigration. That was Sinn Féin's position as far back as 1998 under the leadership of Gerry Adams. So let's now fast forward a few years and take a look at Sinn Féin's position on the 2004 birthright citizenship referendum. For those who don't remember and might need a refresher, up until 2004, anyone who was born within the territory of Ireland was automatically offered Irish citizenship, even if their parents were foreign nationals. And there was a concern at this time that this rule was being exploited as a loophole by some migrants, where foreign national women were flying into the country while heavily pregnant, specifically so that they could give birth to a child in Ireland, and then that child would receive automatic Irish citizenship and a right to remain in the country, and so on. I'll let the Justice Minister at the time, Michael McDowell, explain.
The government is putting forward this proposal. It is to eliminate an aspect of our law that exposes Irish citizenship to abuse. The nature of the abuse is this. It's possible for someone with no real connection with Ireland, whether north or south, to arrange their affairs so that they give birth to a child in Ireland, north or south. By virtue of our laws as they currently stand, that child acquires an entitlement to Irish citizenship. That carries with it a number of important benefits for the child in question. As an Irish citizen, the person is thus also a European Union citizen, with all the rights of free movement and other treaty rights that go with that status. And as an Irish citizen, the person can avail of the common travel area arrangements that exist between Ireland and its near neighbour, the United Kingdom. In international terms, this is an extraordinary situation, because no other country in the world, it's safe to say, has a situation both where citizenship can be acquired through this most tenuous of links with the country of citizenship, and carries with it such a wide range of free movement and other options for the citizen.
So effectively, all you had to do is give birth to a child in Ireland, and suddenly that individual would have the ability to live in Ireland, to travel around Europe, to avail of social welfare, etc., etc., which created an obvious incentive to abuse and exploit this law, as you can imagine. So naturally, the government at the time, under then Justice Minister Michael McDowell, wanted to put a stop to this practice and this carry-on, as you might expect. But do you know who definitely did not want to put a stop to it? Well, that would be Sinn Féin. When a referendum was held in 2004 to end this practice, Sinn Féin fiercely defended birthright citizenship, with their Dáil spokesman on justice and equality at the time, Angus O'Snodig, going so far as to call the referendum racist and an example of ethnic cleansing and cross-burning.
Minister McDowell has earned himself the title of Minister for Injustice and Inequality. I challenge the Minister's claim that this proposal is not racist and will not encourage racism. This proposal is more appropriate to a cross-burning then constitutional amendment. This is nothing less than ethnic cleansing of our constitution. It is repulsive and it is wrong.
He then said that instead of closing immigration loopholes to shore up Irish borders, the government should instead be bringing in hate crime legislation to deal with racism. And again, remember, this was all the way back in 2004 that Sinn Féin was calling for a hate crime bill.
Our time in this House will be more constructively used in putting together proper hate crime legislation which would address the rising racism.
The Sinn Féin TD further went on to claim that the Irish public, if they were asked to vote on birthright citizenship, would surely side with Sinn Féin's vision of Ireland. That is one of inclusivity, diversity and multiculturalism.
The Irish people can see through this pre-election ploy and they won't fall for this. The Minister and his government are hoping to appeal to fear, prejudice and narrow conception of self-interest. But I believe they underestimate the Irish people, the vast majority of whom want to see Ireland mature into an equitable and multicultural society and who also want to challenge racism. I believe, Minister, that the Irish people will reject your attempts to divide and conquer them and demonstrate that they want a future united Ireland that is inclusive and strong in its diversity. And I believe that this referendum, if it's forced on the Irish people, they confirm once again that they share Sinn Féin's vision of an Ireland of equals.
Comically, just 2 months after Osnodig said this, Sinn Féin went on to lose that referendum by an astounding margin of over 79%.
We're very, very much in touch with people.
So just stop for a moment and think of how comically absurd this is. Osnodig stood up in the Dáil and he made this big grandiose speech about how it was racist to prevent migrants from exploiting your immigration system, and he insisted that the Irish public, through their votes, would prove that they agreed with Sinn Féin's vision for the country.
The Irish people, they confirm once again that they share Sinn Féin's vision.
And then almost immediately after he said that, Sinn Féin proceeded to lose the referendum by a landslide to the tune of about 80%. 8 out of 10 people in Ireland rejected Sinn Féin's vision of immigration and instead supported better border controls, thereby smacking both Sinn Féin and Angus Osnodig squarely in the face with a freshly baked pie. As if this wasn't bad enough, later on in 2019, Sinn Féin fully backed a bill to restore birthright citizenship to law, trying to sneak the rejected policy back in by the back door. Apparently those old smuggling habits die hard. While supporting this proposal in 2019, one Sinn Féin TD, Donncha O'Leary, even described the referendum as a deeply unsettling episode.
The 2004 referendum was a deeply unsettling episode in Irish politics, and the debate gave vent to much xenophobic commentary, explicitly and implicitly, with dog whistling in relation to racism, a common feature of it. The 27th Amendment to the Constitution provided that children who were born in Ireland to non-national parents would no longer have an automatic right to citizenship of the state.
So to be clear, Sinn Féin can lose a referendum by around 80% and just a few years later they will still try to sneak it back into law via the back door because they are so unsettled by a democratic result that they don't like, which makes their previous pledge to rerun the defeated family and care referendums a little bit more understandable and true to form in hindsight. It would hardly be the first time that they tried to reverse a democratic referendum result.
We're very, very much in touch with people.
I think it's also worth considering, by the way, what our immigration system might look like today if Sinn Féin had gotten their way in that 2004 vote, because many people now are obviously very unhappy with the government's asylum system. But imagine a world where all an illegal immigrant or failed asylum seeker had to do was get to Ireland and produce a child, and suddenly you're talking about residency rights and EU citizenship and social welfare and the right to vote and all the other benefits that an Irish citizen receives. Do you think that if we'd had a system like that for the last 20 years, the immigration system would be better today? or would it be exponentially worse and make the current crisis seem like a picnic by comparison? Because that was Sinn Féin's plan for this country before they were foiled by almost 80% of the Irish public. We could also look at other episodes like the fact that in 2015, during that year's European migrant crisis, Sinn Féin said that they would not put an upper limit on the number of asylum seekers Ireland should accept, and they added that Ireland should not only take our fair share, but more than our fair share, given our own emigrant history. And of course, they urged the government to house all asylum seekers that may come to Ireland. If we fast forward a couple of years again to 2017, we can see that Sinn Féin also supported the plan to give 26,000 illegal immigrants an amnesty to stay in the country. As you can see here, notably, this was an exaggerated version of a later government policy where Justice Minister Helen McEntee offered an amnesty to 17,000 illegal immigrants. Again, Sinn Féin wanted this number to be even higher at 26,000. Apparently McEntee didn't go far enough with her scheme. I also would add, by the way, that Sinn Féin have since quietly deleted this particular press release from their website. When you go to the link now, all you get is an error message because they have apparently taken it down, I can only assume to try and cover their tracks digitally. But fortunately for you, I am always thorough and do my due diligence when it comes to these videos, so I happen to have an archived copy in my possession which you can read here, despite the post's deletion. We could also look at 2019 when then Sinn Féin MEP and Ard Corla member Martina Anderson said that no human being is illegal in the context of immigration.
Unfortunately, this proposal is another attack on the rights and safety of migrants and vulnerable persons. Many of the so-called progressives have bowed to the pressure of the far right, happy to castigate vulnerable persons as security threats in order to put up barbed wire, harden the borders and keep people out of Fortress Europe. No human being is illegal.
Towards the end of 2022, party leader Mary Lou McDonald took to the radio to insist that Ireland can't put a limit on the number of asylum seekers allowed into the country.
Are you fully supportive then of the government's policy of not limiting numbers of Ukrainians coming to this country?
You can't limit numbers. When people are seeking asylum and fleeing for their lives, of course you have an obligation to afford international protection. We all know that.
Notably, this was almost exactly the same thing that the government had said when they announced their no-cap policy shortly beforehand.
And what you're calling for effectively is a cap on immigration and a cap on asylum into this country. Let's be clear, I'm calling that out. That's what you're calling for. We will not support that. And we will not support a cap.
You can't limit numbers.
And then all of this brings us to today, when we have a baffled Matt Carthy on the radio, shocked, horrified and confused at how anyone could say that Sinn Féin supports open borders.
Lots of people, online nasty actors, try and portray Sinn Féin as in somehow supporting open borders.
I mean, honestly, where did those nasty jerks possibly get that idea? So when it comes to immigration, Sinn Féin has clearly been on a collision course with their own voters for years now. For years, polling has consistently revealed that Sinn Féin voters are vastly disproportionately opposed to mass immigration, much more so than most other parties.
Mary Lou McDonald, your biggest political mistake?
Well, one mistake I will never make is to misunderstand who I represent and what I represent and the purpose of Sinn Féin in advancing the interests of workers.
So as the party's true position on these issues starts coming to light, is it any wonder why in the last couple of years we've started to see defaced posters of Mary Lou McDonald showing up in her own constituency of Dublin Central, being booed and jeered by crowds of mostly working class demonstrators, i.e. Sinn Féin's core target demographic. We keep seeing footage going viral online of Sinn Féin politicians being assailed by irate locals in every part of the country on doorsteps and at community meetings.
Sinn Féin did brand the people in East Wall far-right fascists. And excuse me, I'm still speaking, excuse me, a councillor from Sinn Féin from Northern Ireland made a video on it and said that we were far-right. Every political party in this country is supporting mass migration. Every one is. Every one is. And it is affecting our housing supply. It is affecting it. We will not accept any migrants in any premises in the surrounding area. We don't want it.
And as these scenes have been unfolding around the country, the party has been steadily losing ground in the polls throughout this whole process. And so now, as years of mass immigration policies start catching up with them, they're beginning to panic and trying to take evasive manoeuvres, claiming that immigration is putting a strain on accommodation in Ireland, don't you know?
We've been very clear on the issue of immigration, and the government are making a shambles of this year.
And what would you say then to Sinn Féin voters who see more people coming into the country and say that's more pressure on accommodation?
It is more pressure on accommodation, and that's why we need to ensure that it is a fair system and it is an efficient system.
I'm sure this is a very heartfelt and genuine position that has nothing at all to do with saving oneself from an impending electoral disaster. Oh, good heavens, no. You'll often hear long-time Sinn Féin voters expressing their shock and horror at the party's recent direction. You hear people saying something to the effect of, "Why would Sinn Féin support such an immigration policy? They really blew it. This just makes no sense. This isn't the party I joined." But that's where those people are wrong, I'm afraid, because that is the party you joined. As we've seen from this timeline, Sinn Féin have always been out of touch on immigration from day one. Most people just didn't notice that this was their position the whole time. And so if you are one of those people who's shocked by the information in this video, and please comment down below if you are, I read the comments and I'd love to hear from you, then it's at this point that I would urge you to ask yourself, why am I only finding out about this now? Why has this not been brought to my attention before? Because all of this information has been publicly available for years, yet apparently no journalist, no media outlet, and no major politician did you the service of telling you about any of it. You were kept in the dark about critical things that are happening in your country right under your nose. And the question is, why is that exactly? The reason these things are coming to light now is because new media outlets like this one, Gript, are actually reporting on things that matter and informing you of the reality of what's going on in your country that we think you have a right to know about. So if you've benefited from the information in this video and you would like to support a media outlet that will cover more important stories like this one, then please consider supporting us via the link on screen with as little as £10 a month. Because unlike RTE with the licence fee, which you're forced to pay by law on pain of imprisonment, we don't receive any state funding. We rely entirely on the support of viewers like you. So if you'd like to see an outlet like this one grow, then please consider chipping in whatever you can afford to keep us doing this extremely important work. My name is Ben Scallan, and you've been watching Gript Media. Tell a friend to tell a friend.